everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 17 of Spy Family. And yeah, so the last episode was hilarious. There's just something about the physical comedy of Yuri and Yours Kitchen. I like the Frankie side story, but Yours Kitchen, that one was pretty good. So I have taken a little bit of time off from Spy Family to catch up with some other shows I had watched ahead, and so I've caught up, and now I have some comments actually go over with Spy Family before we start. Ashley Penn talked about how Anya's message in blood way back in episode 14 could actually refer to the Detective Conan series that features the same gimmick a lot in it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You're doing shows that have other like detective-y gimmicks and you're using them in Spy Family. That's like a nice little meta reference. I like that a lot. And then Chloe NG, Sarah Linda, and like 20 other people, they all were like, because I didn't get the consonant joke, and so I'm glad you all explained it to me, but I saw Chloe NG's first, and they said that the Japanese word for consonant and the Japanese word for cause of death are about the same in pronunciation in episode 15, and I was like, oh, okay. That joke makes sense. That's the trouble with translation. When you translate a joke from one language to another, if you don't get that like cultural or linguistic context, it's hard to like for it to land with other audiences. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't envy like dub actors that have to translate a joke into English and try to match the lip movements. I don't envy that at all. Cause like I watched like Haikyuu dub, and there's a character in Haikyuu that does a lot of like puns. And so them trying to translate them, I'm like, I don't envy y'all. That's a hard row to hoe. And then Sarah Linda had the same comment, but also talked about how it was very fitting that like for Halloween, that episode coming out around that time, that you had the violin shrieking and it sounded very Psycho-esque because it came out just around Halloween. So I thought that was really fun. But also, there's this cool contrast Sarah Linda pointed out that you have Your is all about like doing everything they can to keep the family together. She's like, I have to be a good housewife. I have to do everything because we have to stay together and make this work. Whereas you have Loid kind of lamenting that it's not going to work. Loid's like, you have Yor who has this kind of like idealism, like if I just do the thing, I can keep the family together. And Loid's kind of being realistic going, once the mission's over, we're done. And it's kind of like, and you could tell that at the end of the day, despite these two different mentalities about the situation, they both at the end of episode 16 are coming together from a sense of they want the family to keep together. For Loid, he wants the family to stay together despite the mission suggesting otherwise, and Yor wants to keep the family together in order to keep her being able to do her mission. So it's kind of a cool contrast. Yor needs the family to stay together because it's integral to her missions, and Loid he wants them to stay together because of personal reasons, but knows it's probably not likely because of his missions. So that's a neat contrast. And then I talked to kind of Batumi about this on YouTube, but I've had a lot of comments that have been like hardcore, like Loid has it tough. And I'm like, whoa. Because there was a lot of people, and it wasn't just them. It was like several over the last 3 or 4 episodes that were like, Loid's got it rough. And I'm like, yes, he does. And I talked to kind of Batuni about it. I felt kind of in the comment section like people were maybe suggesting that I was like being harsh on Loid. And I was like, where did this come from? Because I talk about it that, yeah, I think the one detriment that Spy Family has right now that I'm kind of like, man, because when you look at the covers and you look at the fan art and stuff, one of the things I thought was going to happen in the series was that we would have this balance of Loid and Yor. And that even though, yeah, Loid is the main character, we're looking at this from his perspective. I know that. So I don't want any comments being like, well, you have to remember that Loid's the main character. I know that. But I thought that we'd have more balance because we haven't seen Yor go on any missions at all. I'm like, is she even an assassin anymore? And I know somebody's gonna be like, oh well. And somebody in the comments already said like, we'll find out more about Yor. I'm like, please don't spoil me, please. But I'm like, don't tell me the plot. But I'm just theorizing out loud that I wish that we had at this point had more balance between Yor and Loid, and we just haven't had it, right? It's easy to see I've had a lot of people comment that some people think that Yours not doing anything. And I'm like, she's doing a lot. And someone commented being like, well, she lets Anya get away a lot. And I was like, well, we don't know if that would be different with Loid because Loid's not there. He's on his missions. So it's kind of hard to say. But that is one thing I was a little disappointed with at this point in the series is I thought there'd be more balance. And if it comes later, it comes later and that'll be cool. But I feel like right now, Yours just at home learning to cook and watching over Anya, and we don't get to see her out on any missions, so it makes it seem like there's more stakes on Loid's end than there are on her end. And I don't think that's the case. We just don't get to see it because Loid's our main character. But a lot of people were super defensive of Loid, and I want y'all to know, I think Loid does have it rough. Loid's got it really tough. I want Loid to get a nap. Loid deserves a nap after all this. But I felt a lot of people were like yelling at me in the comments that I wasn't like maybe thinking Loid had it tough enough. I'm like, I know I get it. And then kind of Batuni and I talked about it and they were like, no, a lot of people in the fandom, I guess, according to them, a lot of people in the fandom think that Loid is like, that they viewed Loid negatively. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, so yeah, I do think Loid has it tough. He needs a nap. He's got too many irons in the fire. He needs to learn to say no, but he can't say no because it's a war and it's a mission, right? So I just thought that was really interesting. But just know, I do think Loid has it rough. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I do wish that we got more with Yor than just her following Anya around. I wish we would go on assassination missions with her, see her side of the story and see what she's dealing with and get more with her and Yuri. But again, apparently that's going to happen at some point. I don't want to know when. Please don't spoil me. I was just like, and they're like, I didn't know it was a spoiler. I'm like, what can we do? So yeah, I'm really curious to see what we're going to get out of this episode and what we're going to do next. The last episode was kind of like a two-parter, so I'm going to be curious to see what we get moving forward, because we're at episode 17. We had 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We're at the 5th episode. We're near the halfway point of Cour 2. So we're near like the 3/4 mark of the season. So I'm going to be very curious to see what all we get this episode and if we go back to like school things, because we've taken a break. We haven't done anything school related this entire Cour so far. It's all been like the spy work. So we'll see how that goes. But I hope y'all are excited for this. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with old Spy Family here. And so we're going to find that out here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh. I live for the Desmond and Anya storylines. They may be, I love Loid and I love Yor and I like the parenting bits and the spy missions are great. Sylvia Sherwood is like the badass of badasses. But honestly, I live for like the Damian and Anya side stories because I love Damian's character. Damian's character is so wonderful because we get a little bit more and more with him, and he's so nuanced and he has so many layers to him, and he's like this kid that you can instantly relate to what he's going through. You get his plight, you understand why he is the way that he is, and you root for him to get that attention, right? But at the same time, you're also rooting for Anya to get her mission accomplished, and their mission requires Damian and Anya to work together, and they're getting there slowly but surely, but there's still so much barrier between them. And Anya, her using her telepathy to kind of understand him, but she can't let him know that she understands him, and she's 5, so she doesn't quite understand him. It makes it so interesting because, yeah, Anya is kind of, she has some like, for a 5-year-old, she's very resourceful, right? Anya has street smarts for a 5-year-old. She's not a book smart kid. Damian seems like he's a book smart kid. Anya's more like street smarts, and she can be resourceful and use her powers to help others. And Damian seems like he's book smart, right? But God, this episode, like, it's weird. I feel like they didn't have enough of that plot line for Operation the Griffin Plan to fill out the whole episode. So what I don't know is if Full Metal Lady and Omelette Rice are just like bonus chapters. They may be like bonuses that were put on the end of the chapters, and they're like, let's just go ahead and throw it in here and finish out the episode. Because when we ended the Griffin Plan, we were already at like 17 minutes. I like looked up at the clock and I was like, well, I don't feel like we're halfway through. I feel like we're much further than that. And yeah, we were. So I was like, that's so weird. But oh my gosh, Damian. So I want to talk about Becky too in this. Get her up on here and talk about them going to school together. And Becky asking Anya if she's watched the latest romance story. She's like, what is it, Berlin in Love? It sounds like a soap opera. Did you watch yesterday's episode of Berlin in Love? So, okay, this is so funny because my best friend and I are very, very different when it comes to like the shows that we watched when we grew up. I watched like all cartoons, movies, maybe like a movie like Labyrinth that was live action, maybe like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the original one, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like those like live action movies I watched when I was a kid, but I was mainly like cartoons. I loved cartoons. I love animation. It's a visual medium that I love watching stories through. And so I was never really a live action person. When I was in high school, maybe I watched some like after school specials like Family Matters or Full House or something when I was like in high school. But that's like when I really like watched live action stuff, and it was because my parents watched it. Really, it wasn't really my distinct choice. But my best friend was like, watch Saved by the Bell and like all these like 90s live action shows when she was a kid. And she's like, oh, don't you remember this show? And I'm like, I'm like, do you remember this cartoon? She's like, oh, I don't watch cartoons. So her and I kind of have like the same viewpoint of like Becky and Anya here. Or Becky's like, oh my gosh, like the embrace scene with Vincent, the two characters, they got together. Oh my goodness. And Anya's just like, oh, like I like cartoons more than I like dramas. And Becky's like, you're such a child, Anya. And it's kind of like, yeah, Becky thinks she's really mature because she's like watching like adult shows. She's like, you're not interested in romance at all, are you? And then Anya's like, romance? She's like, you mean flirty stuff? She's like, the stuff that my mom and dad do? Ugh. And she's like, oh, you're too young to understand yet. It's like, if you have love, you can even fly. And yeah, so she's like, love gives you wings. And she's all, philosophical about it. I love that we have, them going to school together. And then you have Damian and his two friends, Emil and Ewan. And I love that they're like, look at them getting excited over something stupid first thing in the morning. This episode was hilarious. The banter between them was so funny. I loved it. I was like, oh my God. I was like, it's so great. And Damian doesn't seem like he's really like, he doesn't seem to care about it. He just wants to get good grades so his dad will notice him. And Anya's like, oh, it's second son. It's like, doesn't even call him Damian. But the fact that she's like, previously on Spy Family, I love how she portrays Damian in this, like through her vision. There are times where she makes Damian look so badass and menacing. And then there's other times where he's like a big, like a goofy dork and she's the smart one. It's funny, but Anya has such an imagination. She's like, and he's like, if you could think up an awesome name for your dog, I'll let you come over to my house. I love the tagline. He never said this. Because she's 5. I feel like Anya, it's funny. I feel like Anya is a little bit more like Yor in how oblivious or like idealistic or kind of over the top she can be in her thinking. But then there's times where she is more like Loid and being resourceful. So it's kind of funny, right? But oh my God, so good. And I love that she has this foolproof plan. I also love how she thinks Damian lives in a castle, like just a straight up castle. She's like, will Anya be able to overcome second son's bullying and complete her mission? Oh my God. And like Anya's battle continues. Tune in next time on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. And so I love her idea. She did have a good idea. Anya has really good ideas for how she could solve the problem. The problem is that they don't ever execute the way that she wants them to. And so everything's thrown off. So she had this great plan. She took a new picture with her parents. And I love that, Anya, you have Loid and Yor that are just looking like normal people. And Anya's like, I'm super serious and ready to go. And Bond's just sitting there. She's like, I've got this. When Becky got the photo, I really thought that she was looking at Bond and was like, oh my God, you're a cute dog. But no. And so I also love Anya's evil smirk. She's like, yes, bingo. She has like the hee. Anya's gonna become a villain. A villainess. This whole series, Spy Family, is Anya's villain origin story. And it's gonna be up to Damian to stop her. Oh my God. Girl, that smirk, it's so evil. But she drops the phone. She's like, oh no! I've dropped my very cool photo with my very cool dog in it. Whatever shall I do? And I'm so clumsy. And they just walk on by her. But Becky sees it. And Becky's like, oh my God, your father is hot. And she just loses it all, right? She's like, he's so amazing. Becky is all of us, being like, who is this unbelievably hot guy? Like, is that your dad? Oh my God. I love that she's just like, has a huge crush on him. And I love that she's like, introduce me to him. Is he seeing someone? She's like, my mom? Oh, girl. Which is relatable, right? Because I don't know. I had a few friends that their fathers were really good looking. And I was like, man, how about that? And Anya's like, I don't understand. And she's like, I'm going to keep this photo. Her thing with the paper cardboard thing that she makes of Loid and the argument she gives Henry, so good. I love it feels like they're so obnoxious. And Ewan's like, they're all at that age where Ewan and Emil are like, gross. Romance, yuck. It's really cute. But yeah, so also, Henry Henderson is like just a full-time substitute teacher. I'm like, these teachers, he's that administrator at that institution that he's like, oh, you're sick that day? You think we're canceling class? We're not canceling class. We're getting a sub. Like, that's how he is, right? The school that I work for, they're like, oh, teacher absence. We're going to get a sub. And I'm like, okay, or you could just cancel class. It's fine. But yeah, I love that he's like, oh, no. We cannot have, any canceled day of learning here. To begin, arts and crafts class, I would be all freaking about this. Art was like one of my favorite subjects in school. I loved art. Like all this making things and coloring them, I would have been all about it. So this episode, I was just sitting there like, what could I have made? Like there's so many things. And I like the idea of I like the idea behind this because it's putting them in random groups, but then it's giving them a limited number of resources. So it's teaching them how to delegate. It's teaching them how to share, how to communicate, how to be kind and, respectful of others. Like it's teaching them all these really cool lessons. It's actually a really good lesson. I kind of like it a lot. As a teacher, I'm like, this is really clever. I like this a lot. But some of the characters and their designs, there's a boy with like this Frankenstein flat top hair. And I'm like, he looks more like Desmond's son than Damian does. And everybody's like, okay, yes, sir. And so he's like Herman Clerk, Edward Perkshire, Paler Nomney, the most like upper crust names possible. But of course, I assume Damian is a STEM major. He's not a fine arts major. I guess he's just like, this is stupid. I don't have time for this. Like, I don't want to do paper mache or make things. And they're like, oh yeah. And he's like, I heard someone in class. I love that these little kids gossip. And they're like, that important people are coming to look at our projects. And they could be like, to pick a prize or something. It could affect their grades. And then Damien's like, well, crap, I do care. I'll take this somewhat seriously. And so then Anya ends up in the same group. Oh my God. I love that Anya, when she hears she's in Damien's group, she's like, yes. She's like, oh, perfect. This is my chance. And then you cut over to Damian, who's like, damn it! He's like, no! Pulling out his hair. Because Damian really does like Anya, but he's like, no, she's gonna get in the way. I had a feeling this would happen. Oh my God, what a tsundere. Damian is the epitome of a tsundere. He's like, no, don't get in my way. And she's like, what? And I love that she's just like, get in my way. I just imagine the dynamic of them when they're older, that he's just like, I've got a handle on all of this. And she's like, no, you don't. See, I want her to stay at the academy so that her and Damian can get older together and then I can ship them. It's so freaking cute. I love it. And then her and Becky, I love, she's like, oh, we ended up in different classes. And Becky's like, oh, you mean this photo? You want this back? And of course, Henry's like, sit down, shut up. So, and then Henry goes over like all of the different things that make the project really good. But he asks them to make animals. And of course, when he gets to Becky and asks her what she did, she's like, oh, she made Loid into like this little thing. It's actually really good. Looks great. And he's like, that's not an animal. And she has like the customized suit that goes over it, which her dad makes weapons and stuff. So he would have all the accessories. So she's like, yeah, you just clip this on here and it's really great. And he's like, that's not what we asked. We asked for something that's an animal. And she's like, well, aren't all people animals? And that is such a little kid response. Like, little kids will find like a loophole and they'll get you with it, right? Every time. I used to substitute teach, and I love substitute teaching high school and junior high because students at that age, like, you can have conversations with them. You can talk about more mature things. I would sub grade school, but I am not meant to sub little kids because I'd be like, okay, we're going to just do our letters today. And I remember there'd be like some kids would have some sassy answers, and I'd be like, okay. Like, I went somewhere and taught this one little girl that was probably like Becky's age was like, well, that's not how our other teacher does it. She does it this way. And she is certified to teach little kids. And I was like, But yeah, I love it. She's like, my sweet Loid must be a super intellectual person. So calling him an animal is rude. So I'll make something else. And she just smashes it. And the other girl's like, are you okay? So yeah, Becky's a little scary. A little bit scary. What I kind of hope will happen now that she like has a big infatuation with Anya's dad is that maybe she'll try to like go to Anya's house, and maybe since Loid knows who her dad is, he'll try to use that, and maybe we can arrange some way for him to get to Desmond's dad through that means, because it was established that her dad and the Desmond guy work together. So maybe that will lead to something. Maybe Becky having a crush on Loid will lead her to want to go to Anya's house with her parents, and that will be Loid's way of getting an in. We'll see. We'll see, but Becky just crushing it. Oh my God. And so Anya, meanwhile, is making Bond, and Damian looks miserable. He looks like he'd rather be anywhere else doing anything else. He's so hyper-focused. And I love that she sets it down, and like, if yours food was represented in this arts and crafts project, that'd be it. Because it is. It's just, it looks like a polar bear, and like she has a little tail and stuff. It looks like, I say Anya's more humanities-based, but she's really not. I like Anya's creativity there. She tried, but she made something really quick. Anya doesn't have the patience for arts and crafts. And Damian's like, what is this supposed to be? And she's just like, his name is Bond. Like that was gonna do anything. I just love it. He's like, okay. He's like, yeah, you're sure you're into naming garbage? And then she just collapses, right? Like, Operation Dog has reached its end. He's like, what operation? What was that supposed to be, a dog? I love that everybody else, like, the one girl's over here, like, they're all cutting out shapes to make things. Anya's made this crumpled up garbage mess. And Damian has, like, a full architectural plan of what he's going to do. Like, Damian's kind of a prodigy, right? He just wants, which is sad, because Damian is so, it seems like he's so academic and he's so smart. But all he wants is to impress his dad. That's literally his whole goal, is just to make his dad notice him. And it's the saddest thing, because he's a really smart, talented kid, but his dad doesn't care. It's so sad. And he's making here's the thing, he's making a griffin, like the family crest, right? A griffin. And that gets Anya to think of a griffin. She thinks, are they related to Mr. Chimera? So I'm like, I wonder if the Desmond family has something to do with the labs that were experimenting with Anya and Bond. So maybe, possibly, that would be interesting to explore further. But yeah, I like that Damian does not understand the game of, sharing. He wants all of the things because he thinks that his mission and his goal is more important than theirs, because he has his ulterior motive. He's like, if my family name is involved, I can't make anything bad. I know if I make this thing amazing. And then we see his version. And I want to make note that in his version, when he's showing it to his dad, the heraldic beast of the Desmond family, he looks like, so it's like all sunny and everything, and he's blushing, and he looks like a child there, right? Also, looking at his father up close, I really hope that Desmond inherited the looks from his mom. I really hope, because I don't know what he got from his father. Does his father have an earring too? He has like cuts and staples on either side of his head, like Frankenstein. It's kind of crazy. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, you accurately depicted our family's dignity and elegance. You're the pride of the Desmond family, Damian. Oh, and he's so happy there. He's like, oh my gosh, Like, I want him to get praise from his dad so badly because it's like he deserves it, the sweet summer child. And Anya's just like, okay. And here's the thing. Anya does not understand what it's like to not get praise, or it's not even praise, because I don't know, Loid and your praises her a lot. Loid is kind of like more stern and like, but Loid, I guess because Loid loves Anya and is kind to her and considerate, she doesn't know what it's like to not have that. So she can't quite, either it's been Loid or no one. So she's grown up with a total absence of that fatherly affection, and then she immediately kind of gets it with Loid. So she doesn't really know what it's like to be without. And Damian has been without for a long time, it seems. So that's interesting. Also, her viewing Damian with the snot coming out of his nose and his eyes going opposite directions. Oh my God, girl. You two and your views. And he's like a puppet. Oh my God. And like the way he's just going, isn't this amazing, father? And she has this little apple beanie on her head. She has a raspberry beret. And then the dad's like, you have excellent taste, Anya. And she's like, I'd love to see your parents. Like, I can do that. Like with her smug face and blowing the air out of her nose. Mission complete. And so she's like, now Operation Dog is Operation Griffin. And she looks so terrifying. She looks terrifying. Like, girl and her villain origin story. Her and Damian will rule the world one day. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Meanwhile, Damian's trying to like, he's such a tsundere. He's just like grumpy, like, I'm going to do this right. The way they animate Damian is so cute. It's adorable. But then, of course, Anya, I will help you make that thing. She has like the angelic rainbow halo coming off from her. And what's sad is that she calls him second son. And I'm like, I wish she'd call him Damian. But he does call her Shrimp, so I guess that she finds that insulting. And then she's like, you can use my paper. And he's like, and of course, Damian has the blush, right? When she's like, here, you can have my paper. And he's just like, no, make your own. Like, why are you being nice to me? She's like, I'm already done. He's like, that is insane. Why would you turn that in? And he's like, I want to help you out. And he's so blushing. And he's like, fine, whatever. And he's so red in the face. And I love that Anya has like the little gremlin eyes. She's like, good, Operation Griffin. And Becky sees it. And she's like, oh, is that it? She's like, that's why you always want to be around him. So I love it. She's like, oh, it all makes sense now. Becky's like, that's why she's obsessed with him. She has a crush on him. Which, it's Damian that has the crush. But I love that Henry sees them working together. And he's like, He's like, you can make the legs. He's like, they're going to make a masterpiece together. And I was like, no, they're not. No, they're not. She's not going to be able to do it. And he's like, Forger and Desmond. Most intriguing. Most intriguing indeed, Henderson. I agree. Most intriguing. I am rooting for him. Oh my God. But she makes the jet legs, the engines. He's like, what are those? I told you to make legs. She's like, they're jet engines so it can go zoom. And I love that she has these big, grand ideas. Like, she has these big, grand, unique, creative ideas. And you can see even now in the panel, he has the blush on his face like he's trying to be all practical and pragmatic. And she's like the larger than life, like idealistic, thinking outside the box. And he's very much like, think with the box. It's adorable. And he's just like, no, that's not part of the Griffin. So he's like, oh, no one asked you to put that weird stuff on it. And she's like, oh. And so she tries to make feathers. I like that Ewan and Emil are like, and she's like, fine, I can make the feathers. They look awful. And he's like, don't ta-da me. Oh my God. And so he gets really mad at her. And she's like, oh, don't worry. It has jet engines. It can still fly. But then Damian loses his cool because he has all this writing on this. And you see the family crest. It's the Griffin holding the key. Because, of course, they're the key to the mission, right? And so he's like, butt out. How could you waste this much paper? And he's like, you're so useless. And she has like, I love that the background image of her is the Griffins like sinking to the ground like bombs. Oh no. And the other girls were like, whoa, that's a little harsh. Like, don't tell her she's useless. And he's like, shut up and hand over your paper. And the other girls are like, why are you being that way? And I love that Henry's like, that is not elegant. We cannot let this pass. I like the hair flip of the ponytail. Oh, and then, oh my gosh. His face when Henry challenges him. I really thought for a second that he was going to get like one of those bolts. I thought he was going to get a bolt for a second. I was like, if that happens, Damian would freak out. I was like, oh my God. And he's like, those were not gentlemanly actions, sir. And I love that Damian's like, I can't live like this. He's like, I'm trying not to have a crush on this girl that can't help me. Oh, and he's like, damn it. He's like, I won't be able to complete it properly because of that shrimp. I really wanted to show this to Father. And I feel bad for him because he's like starting to tear up. Like he's starting to tear up and get really sad. And Anya is like, oh. And you can tell he's upset about it. And she's like, okay. And so he make the project and everything. Everybody's sitting there. Like Emil and Ewan have like a giraffe and a lion, which is cute. I don't know what Becky ended up making. There's a turtle and a snake, a zebra. And then poor Desmond. Oh my gosh. And he's just like sitting there crying into his hands. Oh. And she says, I'm sorry I was so useless. And she's like, you can have this instead of the feathers. And all she did was like put eyelashes on the... It looks almost the same. He's like, what is this? Just the garbage you made. Aww. And she's like, I turned it into a girl griffin. So it could be a pair with yours. That's the cutest damn thing! Oh, it's so cute. He's like, why don't you add it to it? And she says, because apparently if you have love, you can fly. And Damian doesn't get it. He's like, what? But, oh my God, the thing that's hilarious is that they look at the griffin. And I like that Anya's like, what is happening? And it won top prize. But the reason it won top prize is because what they thought it represented. They said one of the officials on the board was impressed with it. I love it. He says, the fact that it looks so regal despite having its wings torn apart, which they weren't. She just couldn't make the wings right. And there's like a pencil coming out of its butt. Oh my God. He's like, despite having its wings torn apart, made me think that our country still had a future and could recover from this war. So they thought, they're like, it looks so ugly and horrible, but it's still regal and shining through. Like, they thought it was like a representation of their country. And so that's why they thought that the kids were like meaning with it. And then I love what they looked at Anya's part. And he's like, yes, Damian's like, yes, that's exactly what we were trying to represent. That piece of garbage, really. And they're like, wow, impressive. And Anya's like, give me some credit. I helped make that. And then they said he couldn't hold back his tears. What got me was when he described when he saw the corpse of the innocent baby Griffin next to it. And that's the one that Anya made. So, God, that's good. That's so funny. Oh my God. And Damian's just like, Anya helped me get that award. Like his blush. And then they're like, and she's like, oh, that's great. You can show it off to your father. Like Anya tries to be like the girl in the situation, like, yes, show that off. Look what you can do. She's like, all according to cake. And it's like, oh my God. And of course, Damian's like, what? I could never show that pathetic thing to my father. And he like hair flips himself away. And of course, Anya's shocked. But then we cut back to Damian at the apartment. And all those guys are like talking about all the animals that they saw today, which is really cute. And he has the conversation with their butler, Jeeves. Why are we not surprised? And he asks if his dad's going to be home. And Jeeves is like, no, he won't. So Desmond, what's sad is that Damian's like, I'm not going home over holiday. He's staying there at the dorms. And he said Master Demi is returning home. So we know Damian is Dammy. And there's Damian and I wonder if it's like Dimond, maybe? Dimond Desmond? But yeah. He's like, he's going to return home. He's like, I'm going to stay here and concentrate on my studies. Brilliant young Master Dammy. And so he's about to tell him about arts and crafts. But then he stops. And he's like, do I really talk about it? Is it really worth it? He's like, never mind. And then he said, you told my father about orientation, didn't you? And he thinks he told him about the point. So his dad did know about the punch. Okay. Or the question is, did he? Because he was punched by Anya that first day of orientation. He's like, did he say anything about it? And he said, oh, why, yes, he did. He was quite worried for your health. And Damian's like, you're such a liar. Because my dad's never cared about me. He's like, okay, cool. Which is really sad. And then, yeah, he just hangs up the phone. He's in the shadows. It's so sad. And we see that he has, like, his back, his father's back, right? He says, my father's never worried about me. Which is so damn sad, but I love he has his little Argyle socks there as he comes back and joins his friends. I have to become an Imperial Scholar. So we've set up now that we have Anya trying to become Imperial Scholar and we have Damian trying to become one as well. And they both have their reasons. So meanwhile, then we had the other specials, which the one was the Handler at Wise, the Westalis Intelligence Services Eastern Focus Division. Yes, oh, a handler. They don't tell Sylvia's name because a lady never reveals her name. She is single though. Good to know. But yeah, she performs duties as an attaché in Westalis' embassy. And unofficially, she commands a number of intelligent agents. And despite being under strict surveillance. She's constantly flawless and is called Full Metal Lady. I love it. I love it. She like has the best fashion in this series. Yor can pull off her outfits. Nothing against Yor. Yor has great fashion. She can pull off them outfits, but Sylvia's style is my style. I love her. Like, her outfits are absolutely gorgeous. And so, yeah, she goes through all this routine, like, to throw them off the trail, to, like, make them think something and then get her, like, new clothes on and go a certain way. And I love that when she meets Loid, he's like, do I tell her? Do I tell her her tag's still sticking out on her new coat? And that somebody might notice. Do I do that? It's great. And so then we have Twilight, and we see them go through the motions of setting up the code so they can go see one another, right? And so then when they do meet again the second time, she says, report your progress on Operation Strix. And he just looks like he would rather not talk about it. Lloyd's just like, progress, huh? Well, as far as progress goes, I love these, like, yes, well, my daughter can now clear 2 levels on the jump box. And she can jump 5 ropes. She can jump rope 5 times in a row. And Sylvia's like, what in the world is he on about? So the question is there something to that? Or is Loid just like, we've made no progress. My daughter's just doing the best she can to stay in school. And so if that's the case, what is Sylvia going to do about it? I don't know. But there was even one after this. So yeah, they clearly just needed 2 like bonus chapters to fill out the rest of the episode. And the omelet rice one, oh my God. With just the worst food. And I love that as Yuri is talking about how bad the food is, he says it with such a happy expression. She's like, here you go. He's like, oh good, this doesn't look like pasta at all. He's like, oh, this cake's blue for some reason. Like, he's just so excited about it. And he keeps throwing up. And Yora's like, oh my gosh, I'll try to make you home-cooked meals from now on. Here's some cream sauce pasta. He's like, wow, nothing here resembles pasta at all. Bless him. Bless him for all he's had to deal with. And just like the vomiting noise, oh my gosh. Yora's also freakishly strong, even for a young girl. Like when she slaps him, and she does it out of love. She doesn't mean anything bad, but she smacks him, and he just flies across the room smiling. But all that training growing up trained him to be a military man that has an invincible body. It's like, so you're dizzy because you stayed up for 4 nights and then got run over by a truck yesterday. Be more careful. He's like, I'm fine. He's been able to handle worse. And I love they pass the dandelions. Like showing that maybe something fading. I don't know. But these episodes, oh my gosh, were hilarious. These little shorts and the episode, the Griffin one, hilarious. It may be my favorite so far. The episode Griffin, of all of the Damian and Anya centered episodes, it may be my favorite. I did not go into this episode thinking it was going to go that way, but I think of all the Academy stuff we've seen so far, this episode may have been my favorite. I really liked it a lot. It's just really great. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Did you enjoy this episode? What did you think about the 3 parts? Which of the 3 were your favorite? Oh my gosh, Damian and Anya, they just have my heart. So anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Spy Family. Bye.